Now, I said last night that Australia became a foreign country to many people during the past 2 years. Our governments revealed a brutal authoritarian streak few of us realised they possessed. And many of the people themselves became not just mindlessly subservient, but also dobbers of anybody who didn't go along with the new regime. This happened in the blink of an eye. In February 2020, barely a month into the pandemic, a hotline set up by the Victorian government for people to dob in their neighbours received no less than 61,000 calls. The next month it was 69,000. It's almost as if we Australians were waiting for this opportunity to turn on each other, forgetting how fragile our freedoms were, or indeed that people had died defending them. 2 years later, when the government graciously allowed us out of the country, those of us who rushed onto flights overseas were startled by what we saw. I went to England and Italy at the start of the northern summer and was amazed to see few reminders at all that there had even been a pandemic. Unlike in Australia, people weren't even talking about it. And those stupid social distancing stickers had long since been removed. And except on some public transport, nobody wore masks, especially not politicians. It was as if Europeans valued their freedom more than we do. My next guest is Campbell Newman, the former Queensland Premier, who has also just returned from visiting family in London and Europe, and says he too noticed the contrast with Fortress Australia. Campbell, it is a pleasure to have you on the show.
Great to be with you, Fred. And there is an incredible contrast now between, say, the UK and Australia. But perhaps we want to talk about actually, I think, how this actually developed, because I think it predates COVID, mate. I think really you could put it down to the high-vis and clipboard OH&S class, who for the last 20, 25 years have been running around our workplaces saying, running safety meetings. And we now have a culture of, sort of elimination of risk as opposed to a broader consideration of sort of, trade-offs. It's not really probably I was trained as an engineer. It's not what I'd call a valid way of approaching risk. It's the elimination of risk and to hell with the expense and perhaps the human cost. So I think that's how we've got there, mate. It was a culture that was building in Australia prior to COVID.
Well, we used to be dominated by rugged individuality and a healthy disrespect for authority. How did we evolve into timidly obedient servants of wokeness?
Well, mate, I think that's the important thing about what you're doing, and hopefully other commentators. We need to hold a mirror up and say to Australians, look at yourselves. You are not rugged individualists anymore. You are not self-reliant, bold, individuals who could look after yourself. You're crying for mama. You want government to provide the solutions. You seem to think that government can provide the solutions. It's a complete nonsense.